Jignesh Shah promoted financial technologies indeed has been going through challenging times, perhaps for its survival. The group was hit by one of the biggest scams of NSEL way back in August of 2013. From then, the group as a parent has been weathering many storms, but the biggest of the blow came in October of 2014 when the Corporate Affairs Ministry decided to merge the scam-tainted NSEL, the subsidiary, with its parent, that is FT. And the final blow came earlier this month when Corporate Affairs Ministry once again decided to supersede the board of FTIL. How will a management in this situation tackle such challenging and tricky situations? And what is indeed the way forward, or would the company be in a position to have any exit route from this situation? To discuss all that and much more in detail, we have with us the chairman of FTIL, Mr. Venkat Chary. Mr. Chary, firstly, thanks for sparing this time and speaking to ET Now. I know you have played a role in many avatars in this group for a very long time. Now, as chairman of FT, how do you see this unprecedented situation? And as I put it in my opening remark, is indeed there a way out when ministry has already passed a draft order for merging NSEL with FT and also wanting to supersede the board?
Now, in the first instance, in your preamble, you mentioned NSEL scam. As I see it, from what I have been able to gather, even though I was never associated directly with NSEL. And we also have had the benefit of Justice Thipsay's judgment. It would be wrong to call it an NSEL scam in the first place. It's a payment default. Some people, so-called investors, whom Justice Thipsay has called bogus traders, they, through their broker, a certain amount of money has been passed on to 24 members of the NSEL, who have been declared by the NSEL itself as defaulters year before last. So, as Justice Thipsay very rightly mentioned, it is a misnomer to call it an NSEL scam, because not even one paisa from these so-called investors who are bogus traders has come either to NSEL or to FTIL or to the promoter of FTIL. And so far as FTIL is concerned, it is still one step more removed. And Jignesh Shah, you mentioned, is even further removed. Therefore, I feel that a wrong picture has been given to the members of the public through a kind of a media campaign over the last year and a half, and which has perverted the entire facts of the case. Fortunately, due to recent developments like the arrest of certain brokers, the top brokers, things are now falling into place and the whole issue is now unraveling. Let me now come to your question about the step taken by the government in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. They passed a draft order on the suggestion of the chairman of the Forward Markets Commission, who moved the Ministry of Finance, which is his parent ministry, and suggested that one way out of one solution would be to merge FTIL with NSEL, because according to him, NSEL is not in a position to meet, according to him, liabilities. As far as I see, under law, NSEL has no such liability, because no court till today has said that NSEL is responsible for whatever has happened year before last. No blame has been attached by a court of law to NSEL. Therefore, the question of NSEL's responsibility does not come at all. Every contract which has taken place on NSEL, as the matter stands today, until it is proved otherwise, are valid contracts, and NSEL cannot be faulted at this point in time. That being the situation, the chairman of the Forward Markets Commission, for reasons which I will develop a little later, suggested to his ministry to merge the parent company, FTIL, with NSEL, the idea being that the contingent liability, today there is no liability, in the books of accounts of NSEL for the last year ending 31st March, no such liability is shown. But the contingent liability, in case things go against the NSEL in the courts of law and a liability takes place, then the suggestion of the FMC is to FTIL as the mother company, which owns 99.9% of the share capital of NSEL, should take over the responsibility, the financial responsibility, and discharge that responsibility. This is absolutely unprecedented in the corporate history of India. It has never happened in the past. It is something which boggles the mind, in the sense that if such a thing happens, then investors who would be prepared to come into the country, the mother company is in America, for example, and they would like to invest in a subsidiary in India. Now, if this kind of an interpretation of the law stands judicial scrutiny, then tomorrow all those people who want to invest in India will just not do so. They will run away.
Mr. If you could just interrupt and just touch upon the aspect that you mentioned. Yes, this is an unprecedented situation, also because the fact is that there are thousands of investors who have lost their money. Now, you say that it's a default that has happened. As it stands from your perspective, the agency state there is a scam that has taken place. But the fact is that, as you were pointing out, FT owns 99.9% in NSEL. FT also came out with a bridge loan to the tune of 170 crore plus, if you remember, although you were not part of that time as a chairman, when the scam happened, for refunding to the investors. When FT had taken the responsibility then almost 1.5 years back, the question will also arise, in this unprecedented situation, shouldn't the parent also take some amount of responsibility somewhere?
As I recall, you are quite right that I was not in FTIL at all at that point in time. But I do know that FTIL gave a loan to NSEL. It was not a grant. It was a loan given to NSEL, because at that point in time, FTIL's judgment, that will be a good gesture. And that gesture was made by FTIL, if I understand right, was towards those small so-called investors, people who have whose dues are, say, less than 2 lakhs of rupees, full repayment, so that the small man does not suffer. So it was an act of magnanimity on the part of FTIL, and not something which they were by law required to do. Therefore, FTIL should be congratulated for doing that, rather than to be treated as some kind of a precedent, and the same kind of treatment should be given to the 781 HNI so-called investors in this payment default.
I could turn back and ask you, you have also occupied many senior positions when it comes to regulatory authorities. Now, as you say, who is going to be made accountable or responsible in this whole mess? Where is the money gone? How are the monies going to be recovered? And as you say, for At this point of time, the matter is sub judice. You have challenged the Ministry of Corporate Affairs order. Also, as we speak, tomorrow there is a hearing on the superseding of the board of FT that is going to be heard by Bombay High Court.
The amalgamation, not, yeah.
The board is also going to be the
tomorrow what is coming up before the High Court is only the issue of amalgamation.
Okay, but the fact is, how is going to FT defend this particular case? Because the fact also remains, the promoter himself has been accused, was behind prison for a very long time. There have been instances of accounting malpractices getting reflected in forensic audit. After you came in, you have a lot of time to introspect and look back what happened. Where does FT clearly stand in this particular instance, and how is FT going to defend this MCA order?
Money trail has been very clearly established, as is also reflected in Justice Tipsey's order. The money trail clearly shows from the so-called investors to the 24 defaulters through the brokers. What is necessary? And out of these 24 defaulters, actually 2 of them have already paid up. There are only 22. Out of them, 7 are such who account for 80% of the payment defaults. All that is required to be done is for government and its agencies, including the FMC, the police, the other agencies involved, to lean on these 7, initially the 7 of the big defaulters, and make them pay. What is necessary is for government and all its agencies to put its might and make those 22 defaulters pay this money and pay the so-called investors. As chairman of FTIL, I will never say that these so-called investors should not get their money. There is a lot of controversy about the nature of that money, whether actually it is their own money, or whether it is the broker's money, or it is somebody else's unaccounted money. All those facts are still in the process of being unraveled, and I am sure it will sooner or later it will come. But nevertheless, as you mentioned, they have had to part with that money, and I would be the last person to come in the way of their getting that money. As I said, the straightforward way is to get that money from these 22 defaulters. FTI is always prepared to cooperate with government agencies and to bring about a solution which is, say, to use a term, samanjasya. You know, everyone getting together, FTIL, the brokers, the defaulters, government, under the aegis of the government, the so-called investors, and working out a formula by which this problem can be solved. This problem can be solved.
So very
but
important.
There must be a will. There must be a will to do so.
Very importantly, when you say a formula, is there still a way out to come out with such a formula?
That now depends upon the initiative of the government. Now, this is a government which is, I would to describe it, a pro-market government. It's a government which pro-development government. It's a government which wants to get investment into the country. It's a government which would like the rate of growth of the economy to go up to 9%, double digit, and so on. And therefore, I am sure this government, if it so desires, can step forward and bring the parties together, and there can be a discussion, maybe some amounts may have to be paid by the different parties like the brokers and so on, and a pragmatic solution can be worked out.
Chary, have you already written about this to the government?
If you don't work out a pragmatic solution, these things will go on in court for years and years together. The so-called investors will not get any of the money. We will be harassed in court cases. And as you know, the judicial process in India, unfortunately, is slow, with the best will in the world, because of the huge backlog of court cases. It takes time for the courts to give judgments. We do not want that kind of a situation, because it will scare away investors.
Exactly.
Therefore, it is in the interest of everybody to work out a pragmatic solution, come together round a table and thrash out the matter, and I am sure a positive kind of a solution can emerge.
Mr. Chary, let me be very outright and honest. I have been tracking this case for the last 2 years close. This is the first time someone at this senior level has come out and said that even at this stage you are ready to sit across the table and see if there is a pragmatic approach. My immediate question would be, have you already written to the concerned officials involved in this for looking for this pragmatic approach, or would you take this opportunity to say that FTIL, the chairman of FTIL here, is saying that we are ready for any across the table talks even at this point of time after what has happened to the company?
Now, let me tell you, let me be very frank with you. Government is already aware of FTIL's stand in this matter, that we are prepared to come forward and thrash out a pragmatic solution.
If I could just refer back to a case, again, although these questions will be asked to you because you are heading the ship at this point of time of FTIL, there were indications of 1100 crore being brought on the table for an out-of-court settlement in this whole mess. Maybe this was somewhere in the mid of 2014, if I remember the dates rightly. Is that kind of solution still a possibility, where FT will chip in with whatever its part, others will chip in with something, so that at least the primary amount involved comes out? What would be the, because at the end of the day, investors would accept anything wherein at least partial recovery happens of their money that they have pumped into NSEL. So what would be the kind of solution that we can look at?
I am not aware of the figure that you mentioned, 1,000 odd crores or something. I'm really not aware of any such offer made by FTIL in the past, because I was not part of the scene. I became the non-executive independent director of FTIL only on the 10th of October 2013, several months after the events that took place in NSEL, much later. So as such, you know, I'm a late entrant into the scene. So I'm not aware of this 1,000 odd crores. But as I mentioned to you, FTIL would like this matter to be solved at the earliest. We are a software company. We have over 1,000 people working with us. Most of them are technically qualified people. The software arena, the sky is the limit, and we would like to use the talent. This talent, which resulted in the setting up of 5 exchanges in the country and 4 exchanges abroad. FTIL has a track record of setting up highly successful ventures. The unfortunate exception was NSEL. And as I told you, even in the case of NSEL, it was a payment default. I still maintain that the NSEL concept is very important for the country. For the FMC trying to shrug off its responsibility, saying that this is an unregulated exchange, is absolutely false. And I say this as a former chairman of the Forward Markets Commission.
Mr. Chary, if I could ask you in that sense, was NSEL in that sense way ahead of its times for Indian financial markets? And it was the best example where, as you say, FMC said they were not regulating it, Consumer Affairs Ministry did not know what was happening, and clearly at the end of the day, NSEL fall between two stools?
No, I straight away blame both the Ministry of Department of Consumer Affairs and the FMC. You see, this problem could have been nipped in the bud as soon as the FMC in April 2012 sent a report to the ministry saying that the conditions under which Section 27 exemption has been given is not being observed they should have immediately issued notices to the so-called investors. Then they could have pursued the matter, and this so-called scam would not have taken place. Therefore, FMC was responsible for the size of this problem. They could have nipped it in the bud.
Mr. Chary, having taken your argument, if I could say, yes, from a victim's perspective, you are saying maybe almost the entire system tried to collude. Having said that, taking your argument, if I could ask you now in hindsight, you are a chairman of FTIL, you look at the structure, the way NSEL was created, same members sitting on FT board and NSEL board, the holding structures, if there should have been some more checks and balances, things should have been different for FTIL?
No, if I had been associated with NSEL from the beginning, I would have created a structure which was different. I will tell you, I'm just, this is all old stuff.
Exactly.
But just thinking back, suppose I was involved with NSEL, what would I have done? Now, we are talking about a commodity spot exchange. I would have interested a company like ITC, which is very much into commodity spot market, for example, in Madhya Pradesh. What I would have done in NSEL is, I would have asked FCI, the Food Corporation of India, to become a shareholder. I would have asked ITC to become a shareholder, and other people, big people in the spot market, to become shareholder in the company, and would have done it exactly. We have immediately a precedent in the case of IEX, and all these problems would never have arisen. And now this accusation that because you are 99.9% holder, parent, therefore you are responsible. You know, this kind of a thing would never have come. Perhaps you would have had a broad-based board of directors.
So, yeah, before I quickly wrap up, perhaps as you rightly said, maybe this is one thing that Jignesha should have thought about, because this is one of the few companies in the group where you had not looked into it, if I could say that. So, but if I could ask you, if a shareholder is watching this interview, you are the chairman of FTIL. Now, Odin has been converted into a subsidiary.
No.
It's under process.
It's been process is going on.
The shareholders' worry is FT trying to divest the stake after it gets converted into a subsidiary in Odin, because Odin has been the biggest revenue earner, the bread and butter. No. What is going to be the future of FT?
In the case of Odin, we wanted to see that its value does not go down because of the circumstances surrounding NSEL, and for the last 2 years it is going on without a solution. We didn't want that to affect Odin. The idea was not to, as has been alleged in the petition before the company law board, that is never the intention at all. We wanted to conserve the value of Odin. Odin is a product which is used by 90% of the brokers and by so many other people. It's an invaluable product, and the credit of that has to be given to FTIL.
Okay. And lastly, sir, assuming that the Company Affairs Minister is listening to this interview, what would you like to say to him, even at this point of time?
No, I would request the Company Affairs Ministry to abide by the law of the land and to interpret the sections in such a way that the country is able to be able to welcome investors and not to scare them away.
Mr. Venkat Chary, once again, thanks a lot for sparing this time and speaking to us. It's a pleasure talking to you in this tough time.
Thank you, Mr. Iyer.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/etnow.